Children, today we are going to hear a story about listening and obeying. And this is one of the parables that Jesus taught. And he was trying to get the people at that time to think about whether it was better to say that you were religious or whether how you lived also mattered. So Jesus said, "What do you think? A certain man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, 'Son, go work in my vineyard today.' And he answered and said, 'I will not.' But afterwards he repented and went. And he came to the second and said the same. And he answered and said, 'I go, sir,' but did not go. Which of them 2 did the will of his father?" Amen. So the question is, which one actually listened? He said to the first one, "Please go work in the vineyard today." And he said, "No." But then afterwards he went and did it. And then the second son, he talked to him and he says, "Please go." And he says, "Yes, I'll do it." But he doesn't actually do it. So which one was actually listening to their father? It's the first one who said he wasn't going to do it, but then decided he would actually go ahead and do it anyway. Now, if you're thinking about what does it mean to honor your father and mother, were either of them doing what we're supposed to do? Neither of them were actually being totally respectful, because one had said no, which saying no to your parents is not what we're supposed to do, unless, of course, they were saying to do something bad. But you're not supposed to say no back to your parents. But which was better? Which was more following what his father asked him to do? It was the one who actually did it, even though he said he would not. Now, this is an example of honoring your father and mother, and what does it actually mean to honor father and mother? But at the same time, this is a story which Jesus was talking to the church at that time. And the Pharisees, they were the people who thought they were doing a really good job of being religious and following God. But the reality was, they were looking down and saying that all those other people who were not as holy as them, who maybe had made mistakes, that they weren't doing a good job. And Jesus wanted them to think about, what does it mean to actually follow the Lord? To say that you're a good person or to be a good person? This is a very important lesson for us to think about, is that one of the things that people might complain about churches and about religious people or about Christians is, do you actually do what the Lord says, or do you only talk about or say you follow what the Lord says? So Jesus actually told many parables about this idea, saying, who goes to heaven? Who's going to go to heaven? The people that are descended from Abraham, meaning part of the church, or the people who do what the Lord says? And so what you can think about is, if you meet other people who say they're from a different religion, or maybe say they don't have any religion, but they actually do what the Lord says, which is better? Someone who says they're a Christian, but then doesn't obey the commandments? Or someone who is not a Christian, but does actually do what the Lord says in the commandments? You think about which is better. What does the Lord actually want? He wants us to go to heaven. And it's good to say that you're going to church and believe in the Lord if you want to go to heaven, but the important thing is to learn to live like the angels do. So this is an example where the Lord is trying to show us what is more important, what we say or what we do. What is more important, what we say or what we do? What we do is more important. Of course, the best thing is when you bring them together and you learn to do what you say and say what you do. And that's what the Lord's hope for us is. But it's really important to live a good life, to lead a life that someone can look at and say, that is a Christian, and I want to be like that person because that is a good life. Not be someone people look at and say, well, they say they're a Christian and they talk about the Lord all the time, but I don't want to live like they do. That's not a good life to live. So these are pictures of 2 ways we could be And the Lord is saying, if you're going to pick one, it's better to not say that you're religious and then do what the Lord says than to say you're religious and then not do. So it's better to do the right thing than to believe the right thing. And that's what it's really about, is if you are doing your best to follow the Lord and you're being a good person, the Lord can help you figure out what is the real truth. But believing in the truth and then not doing it, that's something the Lord can't help you with. So he's saying it's more important to do the right thing, to listen to your Lord by doing what he says, than saying the right thing all the time. Amen. Hear further the word of the Lord first from Deuteronomy chapter 4. Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord, God of your fathers, gives to you. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God hath destroyed them from among you. But you that cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you, this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither you go in to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who hath God so near unto them, as the Lord our God is in all the things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you today? Only take heed to yourself and keep your soul diligent, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, unless they depart from their heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and to your sons' sons, especially as the day which you stood before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And from Malachi chapter 4, for behold, the day comes that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yes, and all that do wickedly, shall be stubble. And the day comes that they shall burn them up, says the Lord of hosts, that leaves them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be as ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, says the Lord of hosts. Remember you the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. And behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And finally, we read from True Christian Religion and Charity from the teachings of the new church. There are obligations of charity, some public, some domestic, and some private. The various obligations that the laws of the kingdom impose are called obligations of charity, because charity does them as a matter of obligation, and not out of good pleasure. And because charity regards them as uses, it does them honestly and willingly. With those who are in charity, the honesty and willingness of charity is inward in every obligation, though both the honesty and willingness are in accordance with the uses to which they look forward in their obligations, and also in accordance with what they know of the administering of the uses. With those, however, who are not in charity, the same obligations appear similar externally, but not similar internally. For with them there is neither honesty nor willingness, and therefore, if they were not afraid of the laws, or can on any pretext evade them, they defraud in their payments. With them, not only the things set forth above, but even the laws of justice are obligations. For these they keep from fear of being punished and of losing renown, and on this account they are doing so because they are obliged to, and not from a love of what is just, and thus not from a love of their neighbor. Amen. Here end of the readings of the word, and blessed are those who hear the word of God and keep it. So today we are going to continue with a series about charity and what genuine charity looks like in all aspects of life. And we are continuing on the theme of the obligations or duties that belong to us and can be done as charity. We're going to be especially focusing on the duties within a family as an example where we can see how it's both a natural duty and at the same time a spiritual duty or responsibility. And so we're going to read first from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. Shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them as a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thy eyes. Thou shalt write them on the posts of thy house and on thy gates. So as we look at the duties or obligations or responsibilities of charity, there are responsibilities that are distinct from our occupation or our main use. There are things that we are not doing because we're being paid for them or because they directly benefit us, but because they're something that we're responsible for. Now, this is distinct from volunteer responsibilities and other things that we do just because we want to, just out of free will. But they are things that are obligations, things that we ought to do whether we want to or not. But that doesn't mean they have to be unpleasant responsibilities. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. So, two of the categories that we're going to be especially looking at today are duties of husbands and wives towards each other, and also duties of parents and children, both to each other. Now, most people, and we can say hopefully all people, enjoy those responsibilities. But they recognize that they are a duty, something that you should do even if you don't want to. So again, we read from True Christian Religion. There are domestic duties of charity, meaning in the home. Those are the husband toward the wife, and the wife towards the husband, of fathers and mothers towards their children, and children towards their fathers and mothers. There's also the duties of masters and mistresses towards servants, male and female, and of the latter towards the former. These duties, because they are the duties of education and management at home, are so numerous that if recounted they would fill a volume. To the discharge of these duties, everyone is moved by a love different from that which moves him to the discharge of the duties of his employment. Husbands and wives are moved to their duties towards each other by conjugal love or marriage love, and according to it. Parents towards their children by the love implanted in everyone, called parental love, and children toward their parents by and according to another love, which is connected with obedience from a sense of duty. So marriage, that love between the husband and wife, is described as the desire to do each other every good, or every good thing that they can. Now, this state, though, it doesn't come about naturally, or it doesn't come about as a given. It comes with work. And part of that work is the duty or responsibility that married partners have towards each other. Truly unselfish love is rare. It is not something we're born with. It's something that has to be cultivated, learning to do good to other people without a sense of reward. And in a marriage, most marriages start out with something of that love, but it doesn't last unless you work at it. The Lord reminds us that no matter how we feel at any one time, it is important, especially in a marriage, to love, befriend, and favor each other. We have a duty to treat each other kindly. But that provides the basis for the Lord filling us with conjugal love that makes life so blessed and a delight to serve the other person. Now, we can see how this is charity. This is something that is part of religious life, because it's clear that you can't be a charitable or loving person if you are not first loving and charitable in your own home. So it is not only charity to love your spouse as the closest degree of the neighbor, the person closest to you you can serve, but also because marriages strengthen society, and everything done to strengthen your marriage strengthens and serves society, which is the goal of charity, is love towards the neighbor. The church and human societies are built on marriages. And if charity in marriage is not cultivated, society is weakened and eventually destroyed. So within the marriage, there is the duty to love and respect the partner. But there are also specific duties or responsibilities that are unique to each partner. And we are told that generally the duties of husband and wife are called forensic and domestic. Or another way of saying that is the husband's duties are focused more outward and the wife's more inward looking to the marriage and the home. We are also told that a husband is responsible for cultivating religion in the home as a duty. Now, this could show up in various ways, for example, family worship or reading the word together, but it could be something else, like having discussions on current events in the light of religion, or simply getting the family to church regularly. This is a duty or a responsibility that men have been given by the Lord and is tied in with his spiritual masculinity. A wife has a special gift to promote conjugal love. But since love is more internal, it can be harder to see how this shows up in visible duties. But it might show up in talking about marriage, being alert to influences that are harmful to marriage, as well as providing positive appreciation and support for other marriages. Now, the point is that these two have duties that work together, like the heart and lungs work together in the human. So the man is focused on truth in a way that the lungs bring in fresh air into the body. The wife focusing on love is taking that truth that has been like the oxygenated blood that is shared throughout the body. So they work together and their duties serve each other, but also the whole. But one specific area, more than others, that is a tool for strengthening marriage and is one of the most important duties that husband and wife share is the care of children if they have them. And each has a slightly different role as a parent. A father clearly has a greater responsibility for the care of sons, and the mother a greater responsibility in the care of daughters. But raising children is it's a mutually supportive responsibility that they have. The mutual support that they have there is the catalyst, or the reason that helps build a healthy marriage, is because they're forced to work together and support each other in those duties. And there are also spiritual duties of charity that parents have, and they are contained in the promises made at baptism. Parents promise to teach their children to love the Lord and obey his commandments. They also promise to instruct their children in the truth of the Lord's word. And the reason these are spiritual duties of charity is because they serve the best interest of the children's eternal welfare. But They are also called a duty or responsibility because if children are raised to love the Lord and be useful in heaven, they're also being prepared to serve their neighbor in society on earth. So it is both a natural duty, but it also has a spiritual component. Again, we read from True Christian Religion. On the particular subject of a parent's duties to their children, there is an intrinsic difference between those of the charitable and the uncharitable, although outwardly they appear similar. In the case of the charitable, the love is linked with a love towards the neighbor and a love to God. For these people love their children for their morals, their virtues, their enthusiasm, and their talents for public service. In the case of the uncharitable, there's no linking of charity with parental affection. Most of these people love their children even if they are wicked, immoral, and sly, more than if they are good, moral, and prudent. In other words, they love those who are of no use to the public more than those who are useful. So this attitude of parents towards children, yes, there's a duty to take care of them and to supply them with the things that they need for the world, but the charity enters in when you love them for the good, both that they do, but also especially for society. Some people look at raising children and think it's a selfish thing because they're your children and you love them. But it's not a selfish thing if you raise them to be useful to the society. It's an ongoing process of generation after generation. If their children are being raised to serve society, you have a greater and greater effect for the good of society over the generations. So loving children is sometimes called unconditional love. But this teaching from True Christian Religion is saying that there is a quality of unconditional love that is not just blindly loving someone. Charity means that you love them for the good in them, and you love what is good in them, but not what is not good. So the Lord, He loves us unconditionally, but He also corrects us for the sake of our own happiness. In Revelation we read, the Lord says, "As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if any man hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me." So if a parent is not teaching their children to love and follow the Lord and to love and serve their neighbor, they're not actually loving their children. They are only loving themselves in their children. Now, the way to truly love someone begins with shunning evil in yourself so that you may not harm them. Teaching children by first shunning evils yourself as an example, but also showing them how to recognize and shun their own evils. For a parent, there's no greater joy than to see their children growing up and becoming wise and useful members of society. This is tied to the Lord's love and hope for them as well. The goal of the Lord is to raise all people to be happy and useful to eternity. So as a parent, we can experience the Lord's love in this work of charity, in this duty of charity to care for children and raise them for the good, both of themselves and society. And in response to that love and that care from parents, children also have a duty to honor and listen to their parents. Now, children initially simply love their parents because they do. That's what children are born doing, because they're their parents. But as the children grow and become adults, we hope that the children continue to love and respect their parents, not just because they're parents, but because they are wise Christians and friends. The commandment to honor father and mother is so important because it is key to our relationship with the Lord and His Word. And so as parents, you have a duty or responsibility to represent the Lord to children, and children have a duty or responsibility to honor their parents as they will eventually learn to honor the Lord and the church. So the Lord, He is our Heavenly Father that we should all love, respect, and obey. And for adults, then, this commandment has a celestial or heavenly aspect of love to the Lord. And so in charity, loving parents is important because respect for elders is part of what makes a society function. And not just the people who are older, but also people in positions of authority. And so we can think about the duties of charity in society or in civic responsibility in how we respond to government and other people in authority. The public duties of charity are those which focus on moral and civic responsibilities that we all share. So again, we read from True Christian Religion, public charitable duties are chiefly taxes and excise duties, which are not to be confused with the duties of office. Those who are spiritual feel differently about paying them from those who are purely natural. Spiritual people pay them with a good will because they are collected to run the country, to protect it and the church, and to pay for the administration by officials and governors whose salaries and stipends have been to be paid out of the public treasury. Those, therefore, who regard their country and their church as the neighbor pay their taxes freely and willingly, thinking it wrong to cheat and evade them. But those who do not regard their country and church as a neighbor pay them unwillingly and reluctantly, defrauding the collector and withholding money whenever they have an opportunity. For these people, their home and their flesh are their neighbor. The implication is then, but the rest of society and country are not considered their neighbor. Now we can note that in Swedenborg's day, and also in the time of the children of Israel, their taxes and their tithes were not distinguished between what was for the church and what was for the country as a whole. Now for us, paying taxes is something we are required by law. It's a duty where we can be punished if we don't do it. But supporting the church by tithes is not a legal duty, but it is still a moral duty. For us, we have to pay taxes, but we should still do it from conscience, from a sense of this is good for society. And the same is true about if we love our church, we should be happy to contribute to its good. Angels, they love to give away what they have for the public good. For them, the public good is greater than their own good, and they would give away everything they had if it would actually benefit society. So they have no selfishness in their love for serving other people. We read in the spiritual diary, angels that are most magnificent, but they still are penetrated with the most profound humility. That they are most opulent and dwell in atmospheres, as can be seen, of gold and diamonds and rubies and pearls, and yet they are of such as to desire from the heart to give all these things, and yet more, to others. Nay, to be willing even to be deprived of them, provided that others might rejoice in them. So we think about that attitude of charity, of doing what you can for the good of society from a sense of duty, but also from a love of it. And if you think about, in contrast, people who are unwilling to pay taxes or tithes. Now, there are matters of prudence in how you pay your taxes and how you support the church with a thought for what is necessary for your own use and family. But the love should be there to give what you can for the good of the community. If we think about the joy and satisfaction that is often accompanying when we are able to give to a charity we care about and see the benefit there, we should have a similar attitude or a similar delight in paying our taxes. If we are recognizing the good that our country does for our fellow citizens, we could be cheerful even when paying our taxes, because charity and love to the neighbor become greater the larger is extended. And so loving the whole country or the whole church is wishing to support it comes the closer to loving the Lord himself, because he is the neighbor that lives in all people. And when we love all people, that is the closest we can come to loving the Lord to a certain extent. And so we can think about this duty of charity as the things that we must do because it's our responsibility, but we should also have in us the charity to love, to do those duties and responsibilities. It's perhaps easier to see how that applies in families because there's more of a sense of love in that, but we should have the same attitude in our civic and moral responsibilities. Our love for the Lord can flow into them. We can see also that if we bring that love for the Lord and love for the neighbor into our civic duties and discourses, it could really help heal some of the divide that we see in our country and communities today. Those who love their country and do good to it as a result of their goodwill after death love the Lord's kingdom, since this is then their country. And those who love the Lord's kingdom love the Lord, because the Lord is all in all to his kingdom. Amen.